welcome to another episode of Cryout. This was actually another episode that's been a while coming. I was thinking about doing this a live episode, which, as you can see, the format of this was kind of set up for a live stream. And I thought about this. I thought it would be fun to just go through all of this together, one verse at a time. And in the end, it's just trying to set a schedule up to do it. Things kept on coming up, and so in the end I'm just doing it like this, so apologies, not live. But if we do a live thing in the future, this is kind of going to be the setup that we're going to be doing. So anyways, thanks for joining today. Hope you learned something. I am going to be going into some areas that is to be considered more of meat teaching. Now, there are two types of real teaching in Scripture. You have the milk stuff, which is your basic stuff, your low level, like when you get saved, you learn the basics type of stuff. That's your milk. And then you have the meat. The meat goes deeper. The meat goes into topics which some pastors don't like to preach on because it will scare people or it will send people elsewhere, things like that. And so what I'm going to be doing today is mostly meat type stuff. So this is meat level stuff. If you are a Christian and it scares you off, sorry, it's going to scare you off, but this is reality. This is what Christians have to be aware of. And if your pastor isn't teaching this stuff, well, you need to get to a new pastor. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to be exploring some of the gifts. Now, there are the gifts in Scripture, which Paul outlines, and he goes into that. But there's also, if you read the Old Testament, read the New Testament, you see exploits. You see, major things happening that says, wait a minute, why are they doing that in the New Testament? What happened here? So I'm going to be exploring some of these verses, talking about the gifts, delving into things that are a bit more meaty than most people are used to. And I'm also going to go into some own testimonies of what I've seen and some of the gifts that are not known, that are actually gifts which the Lord does give, but churches, they do not operate in a lot of churches because churches do not know about them. They're a little bit too afraid of them. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I wanted to hit on was definitely the verse in 1 Corinthians. And it's talking about the milk. It's talking about the solid food. And this is basically Paul discussing, I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you are not ready for it. And even now, you are not ready yet. So, I mean, there's a growing phase. People get the experiences, they learn some things about the Lord, and then they need to grow in the Lord. They need to find out more, discover more. And some people cannot handle meat messages. They cannot handle meat preachers. It's just too much for them. It's over their head. They can't understand what they're saying, and so that's why it's better in some cases that they learn from the ground level and slowly work their way up, especially if they don't have a background in it. Now, the next verse I want to touch on is Hebrews 5:12. Now, Hebrews 5:12 says, you have been believers so long that you ought to be teaching others. Instead, you need someone to teach you, again, the basic things about God's Word. You are like babies who need milk, who cannot eat solid food. So this, again, is hitting on this, that you have two levels of believers. You have those that they first come to the Lord, they're entry level. Now, sometimes when you're entry, you understand things because you've had experiences. You have been healed, or you've had a miraculous salvation. Jesus has appeared to you and set you right on your course, and you know He is Lord. And so you've had a taste of the supernatural, but you're still milk level in that, and you haven't had the other teachings. Now, others, they'll maybe grow up in the church, they'll be accustomed to everything, and the preachings, the teachings, and they'll just kind of flow right into it, but they haven't had enough of the meat yet. So there is definitely a depth of teaching. Now, what I want to get into today, I want to talk about the differences. So what really happened between the Old Testament and the New Testament, between Scripture, between the time periods, the people, and really kind of explore a lot of these things. So let's Let's first go into Hebrews 13:8, which says simply, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the same. He changes not. There's another scripture. I mean, he does not change. So you ask yourself, well, why don't we see this today? Why don't we see that today? Why don't we see people acting like this today? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. We're going to explore some of those today. But the important thing is to know that he changes not. So keep that in your mind, that he's not going to change. And let's go to the next verse, which is John 5:8, which is, truly, truly, I tell you, Jesus declared, before Abraham was born, I am. Because the Lord he transcends time, space. He can transcend everything. So Jesus, when Jesus exists, he not only exists in one time period, he exists in the past and in the future. So he is the existing one, which is what Jehovah means. He exists throughout all time and history. So when Jesus was born, he existed not only at the time he was born, but also before then. This is like how the Lord does things. It's hard for us to imagine somebody that instantly, when they create something, they know the entire history of that creation and everything, and plan everything in an instant like that. It's way too complex for us, because our brains cannot process it. But just understand that he is the existing one. He exists, and he does not change. Let's go to the next verse, which is John 14:12, which reads, I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. So Jesus himself is saying that the works that he's done, if you believe in him, you will do those works. You can do those works. There's no limitation to you. In fact, he's even saying you're going to be doing greater things than he's done. So he's already setting the course. It's like, do not let your intellectual thoughts, do not let your experiences, everything dictate what you can experience in the Lord. And this is the same yesterday, today, and forever. This is who he is. So let's start now at the Old Testament. I believe that's kind of important. We go back before we go back forwards again. And let's look at Jeremiah 32:27. And it's a very simple verse. It says, I am the Lord, the God of all mankind. Is anything too hard for me? And see, this is what gets a lot of Christians hung up on healing and such, as saying, oh, it's too difficult, it's too hard, it's too impossible. And they worry about stuff. And it's like the Lord's saying here, he's the same yesterday and today forever. He's also saying, nothing is too hard for me. And nothing is impossible for me. And let's go down to the next verse, which is, let's look at Moses a second. Moses in Exodus 7:12. We're going to do some more exploration after that, but this is just the basic foundational verse. You can read more beyond that. And it's talking about the staffs that Aaron threw down, and it's saying they threw down their staffs, which also became serpents. So then Aaron's staff swallowed up theirs. Now, this is talking about some supernatural stuff. Now, if we think in this day and age, we have a staff, a stick, or something, we throw it down, and we're not expecting that to become a snake. But this is talking about, they're telling us, Pharaoh called the wise men sorcerers, magicians, those that were familiar with ancient dark arts. Now, however those happen, however those works, if they're using like transcending space type whatever to make their staff into a snake, it doesn't matter. The fact is that there is more to the supernatural than what we're accustomed to in our lifetimes. And in Moses' day, this was common. I mean, you had these sorcerers, you had these wise men. They're able to copy this. They're able to do that. And this is one of the things that people often, they forget, because the enemy he wants to be God. The evil one, he fell, he wants to be God. He wants that creation thing. He wants to do that. And so he likes to copy the Lord. And so here in this case, you have Aaron's staff, and he throws it down. They say, oh, hey, that's nothing big. We can do that too. They throw theirs down, and when they throw theirs down, it becomes snakes. But then Aaron's eats up this, because a copy, something that's a rip-off of what the Lord does, cannot surpass what the Lord has made. I mean, this is one of the things with, if you get into some verses on food and what you eat and such, and why I kind of have an understanding that what the Lord has created is good for the body, but what man has kind of edited, what we have done with GMOs, we have done with artificials, we have done with a lot of artificial coloring and things like that. I mean, I was a cancer patient, so I did get into how to eat better, eating organic. Eating things the Lord has created will always benefit you more than anything mankind has created, because it's something that he's made. It's something that was perfected by him, and when mankind tries to edit it, to alter it, to kind of create their own creation, it can never surpass the original creation. The original creation will always surpass what man tries to do. And oftentimes what man tries to do is harmful. And in this case, if you read past this to all the plagues of Egypt and you look at what was happening, to a certain point they're able to copy Moses. To a certain point they're saying, Moses is doing this, oh yeah, we can do that too. We can do that too. And so Pharaoh's kind of getting his hardness of heart going there. But at the same time, it's like Moses, at certain points, all of a sudden, they can't copy it. And they're just like, we have no idea. Nope, we're done. We can't do this. We can't copy it. Because that's how awesome the Lord is. I mean, there's a certain point the enemy copies, and then the Lord's just like, hi, done. You cannot copy the Lord enough to beat him. And that's how awesome the Lord is. This is the Lord in the Old Testament. Now keep that in mind as we're moving forward, as this is going to be important later. Now the next verse I want to get into is Joshua 10:13. Now this is a major verse. People think it's a fantastic, amazing, like, oh my gosh, this could be impossible type of thing. But now this is talking about the day that the sun stood still. So the sun stood and the moon stayed in place until the nation of Israel defeated its enemies. In this event, is this event not recorded in the book of Jasher? The sun stayed in the middle of the sky and did not set as on a normal day. So this goes to the extreme. I mean, when you think about everything that could potentially happen, it's like you have a celestial event where the orbital rotation of the Earth, the sun, where the planets are moving, time literally practically stops just for like a day. And in our modern day, what we know about the sun, the astronomy and such, we think, oh, that's impossible. No, everybody would die. Everybody would fling off. But remember what we just read, there's nothing too difficult for him. So this is no difficult thing. The Lord can do this. This is to be expected. And this was called upon by a regular human for it to stop. So now, as far as how that happened, there are some astronomers that have looked into it, and they could not figure out the actual positions of astronomical bodies and stuff. Things did not match up when they go back in history until they calculate and compute for these days that are off. When the sun's sitting still, when they calculate for that, all of a sudden, all their star charts accurately come up. So that's an interesting thing. Is like when you go back in history, can you find evidence of this? And there is evidence of this event actually taking place. How the Lord did it, you got to ask him. I can't answer that one way or another. Now, lastly, I want to hit on something that I feel like if you're looking at Old Testament, you got to hit on Elijah. Now, let's go to 1 Kings verses 18, chapter 18, verses 33 to 35. Now, you can read past this, but I'm just going to do the meat of it. This is when he's up against the prophets of Baal. They're up on Mount Carmel, and it's a challenge on their sacrifice. They're trying to call down fire to burn up the sacrifice, and of course they are going crazy. He's giving them extra time. They're going, oh my gosh, they're trying to call for these demon gods to come and take the sacrifice, burn it up and stuff, and nothing happens. And so Elisha, he comes up, and what he does is awesome. And why I'm picking these verses, he arranged the wood, cut up the bowl, which was for the sacrifice, and he placed it on the wood. So, I mean, he gets his altar. Usually that's all you need to do. Light it up. The Lord called down the Lord. It's fine. He's like, call on the Lord. Fire comes down and burns up. And then he said, now here's the big part. Fill 4 water pots and pour the water on the offering and on the wood. Now, often, I mean, I've heard some teachings on these water pots. These were not like small, little, like, oh, this is a tiny pot. No, these were gigantic things that they had at the time. And pour it on the offering and on the wood. So not only you're getting the offering, which is the bowl wet, which is already going to be moist because it was just cut up, it was just killed, but you're also getting the wood. And so then he says, do it a second time. And then he said, do it a third time. They did it a third time. So the water ran down the altar and filled the trench. And next we know what happens. Come evening of sacrifice, he cried upon the Lord. Fire came down and it consumes it all. The wood, the stones, the dust. It even takes up all the water from the trench. So this is the difference between the trying to, well, we know we got to make an animal sacrifice. We're going to call on our demon gods. They're going to come and answer us. They didn't answer because they're fake. They're copycat. And then the Lord, the creator of all, just comes down and says, no, you may make it difficult for me. It doesn't matter how difficult you make it for him. He's still going to consume it all. So keep all of this in mind as we go forward, because I want this in your minds as we're going forward, because you need to have an understanding about who he is and what he can do, and that there really is nothing too small or too big for him. Now let's go back to the New Testament. We're going to start in Matthew 19:26, and Jesus outright, he's saying, Jesus looked at them intently, saying, humanly speaking, it is impossible, but with God, everything is possible. I mean, he's reiterating the Old Testament. He's reiterating what Elijah experienced, what Moses experienced, what Joshua did. There is nothing impossible with him. And now let's go into the gifts of the Spirit. What we're taught in the gifts of the Spirit. So keep understanding that there's nothing impossible for him. Now let's go into what most churches teach as the gifts of the Spirit. Now this is 1 Corinthians 12 verses 8 through 10. Oops, I think I... Nope. Where's my 1 Corinthians? You know what? 1 Corinthians 12 verses 8 through 10. Something's out of order here. Alright. Must not have hit something right. Okay. For to one is given the word of wisdom through the Spirit, and to another the word of knowledge according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, and to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, and to another the effecting of miracles, and to another prophecy, and to another the distinguishing of spirits, and to another various kinds of tongues, and to another interpretation of tongues. And I'll just add on 11 here. But one and the same Spirit works in all these things, distributing to each one individually just as he wills. So these are the basic gifts of the Spirit. You'll often see in churches, you have, now many pastors preach on that tongues is the starting. That's the entry level gift. You have to get tongues before you can get everything else. That's not what this says. This is what Scripture is saying, that the Holy Spirit distributes them individually as he wills. I mean, I know people that they can minister in the prophetic. They don't have the gift of tongues. Now, there are some pastors that say, oh my gosh, that's heresy. They can't do that. Why can't they do that? Because it's his will. It's his plan. I know there are some people that do not have that gifting, and the Lord says, no, you will not speak in tongues, but you will do these other things for some reason. Now, why does he say that? That's up to him. I can't answer that. I know of other people in ministry that we had where they don't get anything when we would pray over a paper, or we pray over somebody's paper, and they don't get anything until they're in front of the person. All of a sudden, the Lord just downloads everything they need right then and there. And it's like, well, wait, we have the same Holy Spirit, we have the same gifting, but people are different, and the Lord does not do everything in cookie cutter manner. And see, this is the trouble with so many churches, is like they try to take a cookie cutter approach. It's like, we want cookie cutter this, cookie cutter that, cookie cutter that. This is the steps. It's pretty much almost like a game. You level up, then you level up some more, then you level up some more. So you start at tongues, and maybe you get some prophetic, maybe you get some, maybe you get, and that's not that's not how it works in reality. I mean, that's how they like to shoehorn, they like to put the Lord into a box, because that's how they can explain it. They need to explain it that way. They can't all of a sudden have somebody that's a new convert that's given a gifting that is like of the prophetic, and is like saying accurate things about people. Like, wait a minute, whoa, you're a new convert, how can you have that gifting? Well, that's the Lord. It's His will, it's His plan to give somebody a gift, even if they're a new convert or a non-convert. I mean, there are people that He gives the gifts from when they're born, and they don't even use them until later sometimes, or they might use them, they don't even realize they have them. My grandmother, she had a gifting of seeing things and stuff. She had seen Jesus before, seen other things, but she never exercised that gift. She never knew about it. She was just thought, well, that's great, I'm seeing Jesus, that's great. She never exercised it, and some people, they don't ever exercise it. So let's go on with the next verse. This is Romans 12:6. I'm going to have to type it in here. Romans 12:6, because it looks like I did not write it down. Now, in His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. So again, He's reiterating that He has given us different gifts for certain things. I mean, it's not, everybody's not having the same gift. And there are some that think, oh, you cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter. As I just said, you have to have the same gifts. No, 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 no. That is so wrong. That is so far. That is trying to confine the Lord in a little box. And time again, when you get out into the field, when you get amongst Christians that are operating in the gifts, which are doing, you are going to see things that they are not cookie cutter. And that's so important. Now let's get back on, because it looks like I skipped those two verses. So we're going to Acts 5:15. Now we're going to get into some of the healing gifts and some of the extreme ones. And in 5:15, this is talks about so that they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them, and they'd be healed. I mean, this is a level of faith. This is the same level of faith that the woman with the issue of blood in Scripture. It's like they're believing, they're connecting their faith that if I can just lay out and His shadow, He'll walk by and His shadow will touch me, I'll be healed. And so is what the gifts are about. It's not always about you, your faith in believing for healing. Like, I've had cases in the healing room where I've had to walk away from a prayer session because my faith level was not there. The situation, I felt it, is like, you know what? I shouldn't be praying for this person. My level's not there. I need to step aside and let somebody else who has the faith for this pray. And when I did, I stepped, and it's not something to take offense at. Everybody has a moment when, you know what? You're praying, you're full of faith, and then you sometimes get tired, and then something for some reason impacts you and think, you know what? I just don't have it. I need, somebody else needs to pray. So you step aside and let somebody else pray, and then they pray and the person gets healed. And that is not a negative thing. Knowing when to pray and when not to pray is very important. And in this case, it's like these people, it's not saying that these are Christians that are on the streets. No, these are unbelievers most likely, but they're hearing about this healing ministry. And something must have happened where they heard about the shadow of this person walking by, and they think, oh, let's do this. We believe for it. They get healed. Now let's move on to, well, I just want to close up one thing. I mean, this is something, I mean, there are churches, there are congregations which they do not, they believe in so much of the Scripture, but they do not believe in healing. And this is one of the primary types of people we get in the healing room ministries, people that have no clue about healing, or their church doesn't teach on. They say, no, that's for the ancient church. That's for the old days. That's not for today type thing. It's like, where does it say that? I mean, really, where does it say that? Where can you find in Scripture that healing stopped with the apostles, or healing stopped with the older church? There isn't anywhere that says that. I mean, if you were under a pastor that says, well, healing doesn't exist, it doesn't happen, you need to go to a church where healing is happening, because that guy is not following the Word of God. He's not following Scripture. And so I try to encourage people, especially in healing rooms, when they come in, it's like, you got to, if you're in a church, you need to get that is believing the opposite. You need to get into a group that does believe it, that is professing it, that is seeing things happen, because I see it happening everywhere I go. The only times I don't see it happening is with like a dead church or someplace that's saying that we don't believe in this. We don't, oh, no, we're not going to let the gifts move because that's too scary. We're going to lose converts. We're going to lose people, which basically means we're going to lose money. So we're going to lose money if we allow the gifts of healing, the gifts of stuff to progress throughout the congregation. And of course, that church, if that church cares more about money than it does about getting people healed, then that church needs to fall, needs to collapse, because it is not a good one. So now that we're touching on this dangerous territory, so we're looking at the gifts, we're touching on tongues, we're touching on prophecy, we're touching on healing. Let's go into the more deeper area, the more dangerous area. Now let's go into 1 Corinthians 14:3. And this is going into definitely the prophecy area. On the other hand, the one who prophesies speaks for the people, for their upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. And this is another gifting that you do not see often in tons of churches, at least in America here. I mean, I've been overseas in Indonesia, and I've seen Taiwan churches, Japanese churches, I've seen Chinese churches where the gifts of prophecy is going heavily. They don't stifle it. They let it go forth. And this is, now you get into the area besides healing. I mean, healing people can accept, but when you get into prophecy, when you get into these type of things, then it starts getting scary for them, because now you have, in some cases, you can have the Lord speaking through somebody and giving a word, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the Lord. Is this really the Lord? Oh, and they freak out. And that's why oftentimes prophecy is encouraged. It's edifying, it's upbuilding, it's encouragement. And I generally operate in this area for healing rooms. There are some times that I have gotten a word for especially somebody that was about to die, and the Lord showed me a picture, showed me something which kind of was confirming that they were going to pass away, and that the person needed to act fast and do something fast and things like that. And sometimes the Lord will give words like that and encourage people like that. But oftentimes this is one gift you just, in America, the church, especially big churches, you look at big churches that are like your massive, huge, gigantic things, they do not like to operate in this area. They do not like to, I mean, some of them do. I'm not saying that they all don't, but a lot of them, they like to taste, so they're kind of like, these are shallow end of the pool type of churches where they have just a little bit, just want to step their foot inside, but if it goes too deep, oh no, they want to run. So next verse, let's go on to Matthew 24 verses 1 through 2, and I actually just pulled up one here. So, and Jesus left the temple and was walking away. His disciples came up to him and to point out its buildings. And they're saying, do you see these things? He replied, truly, truly, I tell you, not one stone here we left on another that won't be thrown down. So he's talking about the temple that was being destroyed. Now this happened in 70 AD. And so he's giving a prophetic word. He's saying that, hey, this stuff's going to be wiped out. And seers, this is kind of almost goes into the seer gifting, where seers, they will see things. They will see things in the spirit. And Jesus, I mean, he's God, so he had every type of gifting all in one. And so he's seeing the future in these things. And then this is also goes into another teaching of why the early church were selling their property in Jerusalem. Now, some pastors like to take that and say, well, this is proof that you need to sell everything, give to the Lord, all this stuff. No. You got to read the context. They were selling their stuff because they knew the words of Jesus said that Jerusalem was going to be no more. So it's like, why would we hang on to property here? Let's sell this. Let's give it to the church. Let's build the early church. Let's get things going, because it's not going to be for naught. They thought this was all going to be wiped out, and it literally was. So unfortunately, those with the seer giftings are oftentimes they try to shut them up too, in some of these big churches. Now the thing with the seers is that they can often see the angels, they can often see demons, they can see things like that. They have a gifting where their eyes are open to see the supernatural. And sometimes when you're in ministry, one team member's a seer, one team member's works more in the prophetic, and they clash sometimes because some of them have trouble understanding each other's gifting, because they're alike in some ways but not alike in every way. And some of the most powerful prayer sessions I've been in and the groups I've been in have been ones where they've understood that they have different giftings, and they actually can mesh really well as long as you understand, as long as they understand that they're going to mesh instead of fight each other. And as long as they can, if you have a leader in the group that knows how to use both giftings and knows which ordering to do in a prayer session, how to make a mesh, it's really powerful, because the gifts are meant to complement each other. They're not meant to like hit each other or fight each other. That's not what they're meant to be. And let's go into now. We're going to go into 1 Kings. I'm going to go an Old Testament one briefly. 1 Kings 22. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's long. But this is basically going into Ahab. He's and Jehoshaphat. They're saying, we want to go to war, but we want to inquire of a prophet first. We want to make sure that we're not going to get killed and such. So they inquire of these prophets, and of course the Lord basically sends a lying spirit. He releases it because he's sending out this lying spirit. So all of them prophesy death, and Micah prophesies. He's outright saying, hey, I saw Israel scattered on all the hills like sheep without a shepherd, and the Lord said, these people have no master. They just want to return to their home in peace. And he's saying, you guys are going to get your butts kicked. Don't go to war. And of course Ahab's saying, didn't I tell you this guy never prophesies good for me, but only bad? I mean, he's seeing this thing, he's telling him what it is, and he's saying, well, I don't want to believe it because it's not good. It's not good news. And so Micah explains it, and of course Ahab and Jehoshaphat go out, and they get their butts kicked. So this is one of your things where it involves spirits as well, and what seers, often their gifting is they can see the spirits in people. Whereas prophetic, we get the words, we get things for the Lord, and sometimes people have both gifts, but the seers, they will see things. So then when they're praying on somebody, they will actually see the demon manifest either on them, or they will see something. They'll know, okay, there's a demon involved in this, there's the enemy involved in this. They'll sometimes see chains on people or certain type of things. And the important part is when you get into seeing gifting. Now, this is something that definitely, with the churches that take the tongues, they'll take a little bit of prophecy, but the seer giftings, okay, now it's getting scary, because now you have people that are seeing demons, seeing angels, and it's like, oh, are they drunk? Are they freaked? Are they mental hospital patients? I mean, so when they get to that level, then they tend to really shy away. They do not like that, even though this is a gifting of the Lord. But it's like they get scared because, oh, we're going to lose money if we have these people, and we don't want a seer in the church going up to people walking through the door and say, hey, you're practicing witchcraft, you're doing this, you're doing that. They don't like that. But it's important to have them in a congregation. It's important because this is part of the church. This is who the church is. We're not meant to be without these ones. It's like having a church and you don't have your eyes, you don't have your ears, and you're just basically a talking mouth. That's it. Let's go into now an important part to understand with seer gifting is it starts in 1 John 4, 1. Now this is about, dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak by the Spirit. You must test them to see if the Spirit they have comes from God, for there are many false prophets in the world. Now this is another reason why some of these churches do not like these type of giftings, because sometimes the enemy likes to creep in. And I've heard stories over the years of like those that practice witchcraft, those are in the satanic cults and stuff. They like to sneak in, they like to infiltrate a church and destroy it from the inside. And the only way to really figure out these people are in a congregation is to have somebody with a seer gifting. You have somebody with these giftings that sees them and say, okay, there's an enemy right there, get out. But when the church is too afraid to have those people, then the enemy creeps in. And then you can have them like a false prophet, like what happened in Ahab's day. They're prophesying things and it's making people, oh yeah, that sounds wonderful, that sounds great. And it's a false prophet in the mix. And so that's why in the New Testament they were dealing with this problem, because you have a lot of young converts, people are coming to the Lord, they're getting filled with the Spirit, and then you have sometimes the enemy comes in, you have a spirit that's attached to somebody in the early church, and they came in to try and see if they could create chaos, to kind of split the church up, to stop what the Lord was doing. And that's why it was always important, they said, to test the spirits. It doesn't say get rid of your seers, get rid of your prophetic team, just forget about all spirits, just say, oh no, 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 I don't want to hear, I don't want to see, I just want to focus on Jesus, 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 Jesus. No, no, it's like you're saying, test the spirits. Test the spirits. It was important. It's not something to just like cast aside. And of course we have the next level up, the next thing up, which was be out-of-body experiences, and this is talked about. This is where you would go out of you would go in the spirit, and your body would still be here, but you would go out in the spirit, and you would have experiences with the Lord, or he would take you places and things. Now, a lot of churches like to say, well, this is all the occult. This is Eastern religions. They do all the out-of-body stuff. No, no, no. This is not of the Lord. Well, let's say right in Scripture. And that's 2 Corinthians 12:22. That's Paul talking. I was called up to the third heaven 14 years ago. Whether I was in the body or out of my body, I don't know. Only God knows. He's saying it. This is not a shamanistic whatever from some new age cult that's doing like these spirit walks and all this sort of stuff. This is Paul. This is somebody that you know who built the church, and he's having out-of-body experiences. I mean, I have prayed for people when I've laid my hands on, and then later on they came back to me and said, yeah, I went out and my body, I spent 30 minutes in heaven with the Lord. And I was like, well, darn awesome. I'd like some of that too, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'll keep on praying. People will have out-of-body experiences. And my dad had a lot of out-of-body experiences. I'll go into one of those on another Cryout episode, because it would take a long time to go through all that. But this is something that the churches, it gets to the out-of-body stuff. It gets to like your Ezekiel level, Enoch, all these things. They're just like, oh, no, 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 don't sit down here. We're just going to pretend. Oh, yeah, that's for the past. That's not for right now. It's right here. Paul does it. And Jesus says, greater things you will do. I am the same yesterday and today and forever. So they have out-of-body experiences then. You can have them now. There's nothing stopping it. Now, I just want to get in briefly before I close this up today. I want to get into some areas that definitely challenge things. Because this whole message has been about, I mean, if you look at their modern powerless churches, I mean, there's no power in them. And this goes into, I mean, there's a verse on this, which is 2 Timothy 3:5. Let me see. Go to 2 Timothy 3:5. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. And he actually even says, stay away from people like that. So all these churches that are just saying, oh, there's no power, you just go to church, you listen to your 30-minute message, your little feel good, whatever, sing a few songs, go home. There's no power there. And there's been all my life, I mean, we've looked at other churches, we've tried to find other churches, and it's very difficult to find a church community to get involved in that believes the power, that believes in supernatural. That's why we got into healing rooms. Because, I mean, healing rooms, it's like you are connected with other Christians that believe the power, believe the gifts, believe all these things. And sometimes they're not at the same level, but that's okay. As long as they believe, they're open to what the Lord's going to do. And unfortunately, it's like they're all from different walks of life, different churches. And so it would be nice if that's all in one church. That's the whole body. That's the way the church was supposed to be. But at the same time, it's like, well, they should be affecting their own individual churches too. And we should be seeing changes here, changes there. I mean, their churches should be getting encouraged, should be growing in the gifts, growing more. And sometimes I know a few that there are healing room people that pray, and their church is like completely like, oh, that's too scary, we don't want to go in there. But it's okay if you do it. And at the same time, it's like the word says, stay away from those people. So as a whole, I mean, if we did as the early church did, and expected the supernatural, and we did not fear all these supernatural things, if we did not, like, oh my gosh, run away from this stuff, that's how the church should be. We should be a first century church still, which is gifts of the Spirit, everything, people, shadows, people walking by, and people raising from the dead type stuff. That's reality. That's the Lord. That's the same yesterday, forever. But humans, our own minds, our own little thoughts, our own greed, that alters things, that changes things. And one of the giftings that I want to touch on, and this is a gifting that my dad had, this is one where it's extremely rare. The Lord told us that this was not something that you see in a lot of churches. If a church has one, the Lord was saying it's a very, very fortunate church. It's not. They usually, when this type of a gifting comes into a church, they get really freaked out by it. They get scared, and they tell them to shut up, or they think they have a demon and they chase them off. Now, remember what we talked about earlier in Exodus is that the enemy likes to counterfeit. He likes to copy the Lord. So what the Lord does, the enemy likes to do too. And this is the problem, is like people don't know how to differentiate between the Lord and the enemy. And so what we're going to talk about is the gift of groanings. Now, this has been briefly touched on by some pastors. Sometimes they question it because Jesus does it. And they say, well, what is groanings? What is that? They're not quite sure what it is. But I am going to tell you what it is. I'm going to show you the verses where they find it. So, Mark 8:12. Let me see if I can find it. Here, all right, here it is. When we heard this, he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, why do these people keep demanding a miraculous sign? I tell you the truth, I will not give this generation such a sign. Now, there's more to this verse. Because this verse, when you look at the actual language, it's talking about, it's more of a groaning that he's doing, but it's a deep sigh. It's a deep that he's doing. And if you look into actual words in that, you do a word study, you're going to find that it's referencing more of a groan, talking about this. But let's go with the ones that are a little bit easier to see, which is John 11:33. Now, if you look at the New Testament, when Jesus saw her weeping, he was deeply moved. So he's talking about deeply moved of spirit. Now, that's the newer translations. Now, what they did, and sometimes they changed the translations because they thought that the older language, why was it talking about groaning? Because people couldn't understand, what is groaning? It sounded weird to them. So let's go back to let's talk back to the King James. And if you look at the King James, and even the New King James, it's talking about Jesus, they ever saw her weeping, and as the Jews were also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit, and he was troubled. And there's one more verse we're going to hit on today, and that is John 11:38. So it's just a little bit after this verse again. Let's go to the King James, because these are the older translations, and they're a little bit more accurate in certain ways on how the terms were, because stuff did change with time. He says, Jesus therefore again groaning in himself cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and the stone lay upon it. So before he's going to Lazarus, this is about the Lazarus story, he's groaning. That's twice. Twice he's groaning. It's a deep groan. And what the gift of groanings is the way my dad had this gifting. It would be like, it would be to the point he'd be screaming, travailing. I would hear this thing and I would think, gee, what are the neighbors thinking? Because it was like extremely loud, and our own church didn't quite know what to do with it, and he was able to do some there, but not that much, as he knew it would scare them too much. But when you groan and travail like that, it lifts the prayers, it lifts things right to the top of the table. This is what the Lord was telling us, and why. And he was saying why it was so important churches use this gifting, because it's a deep, deep intercessory prayer. Now, intercessory prayer, you have levels of intercessory prayer. Groanings just is like skyrocket. It lifts the prayers to the top of the table. And when you have somebody, I've run into maybe one other person that's had this gifting in all my life, and they would sometimes go in, not as deeply as my dad did, but they would go into it, and you could feel they're travailing, they're just groaning over something. And it's like words that cannot be uttered. And I know people have prayed in the Spirit, and all they can say is, oh God, oh God, oh God. They'll do that much, and that's heavy, but groanings takes it much more. And this was the teaching of this gifting. This is something that, if you did hear it in a church, and if you did not know what it was, you would just be like freaked out thinking it's a demon. This is not a demon. And I fully encourage people, if you have the gift of groanings, if your church isn't going to let you practice it, then you get into a prayer group and make sure they understand what it is, and start exercising it, start practicing it. It is a powerful intercessory prayer gifting that you need to employ, you need to use. Do not silence it. Do not snuff it out. And let's do Romans 8:26 real quick. And it reads, in the same way the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And there it is. That is this gifting. That is what it's about. It's deep intercession. It backs up what I just said. It backs up what my dad experienced. It was these wordless groans, these deep, deep groanings, lifting it to the Lord before His table. And I just wanted to touch on a lot of this today. This was put on my heart to do. I needed to do something about the gifts and about the mysteries of the gifts. Some of the things that I want people to be encouraged to know that, I mean, you grow up, you go into churches, and you think, okay, the tongues, this. It's just like a boring thing. And you see people on the other side doing these out-of-body things, all these things, and kids get curious. They, oh, wow, they're doing that. I want to do that too. And so they get into the occult. They get into all these dark things, and the enemy leads them astray. And that is all because if you go back to 2 Timothy 3:5, they will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. And this is the big trouble with a lot of churches today. They're great religious. They service the poor. They do all these things for the Lord, but there's no power there. You don't see them going out and praying for the sick. You don't see them going out and ministering to people on the streets. No, they do their little pew sitter. They do their quick little 30-minute message. Boom, 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 done. That's it. And let's not forget, I mean, Jesus, when He was going up, He gave them all power and authority. He says, even when He set them out two in twos, they cast out demons. I can't pull up that verse right now. I don't have it right now. I could look it up right now, but actually, I might as well look it up real quick as we close on this. Jesus sent out the 70. Just how fast you can find this stuff. Basically, it's Luke. So I'm not nuts about Bible Gateway, but I'll use it really quick. He sends out the 70. sending out his lambs, sent them out with authority. And they come back with joy, saying, the Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. That's when he replies. He says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. He saw it happen. And they're rejoicing over that. Do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. And that's a good verse to end on right now. Despite all these giftings, everything that I'm talking about, the gift of groanings, nothing at all compares to that your name is written in the book. That there is rejoicing in heaven when that happens. The Word talks about that. And it's one of the biggest miracles that you can experience. And it's so simple. All you have to do is simply say, Lord Jesus, I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you died on the cross for me, was buried and resurrected. Come into my heart. Come into my life. Save my soul. Give me a new heart. I want to be with you. I want you in me, Lord. I want you with me every day. Just invite him in. Invite him to come in, to be a part of your life. And he will never leave you or forsake you. Amen. So now, Lord Jesus, I just pray a blessing for all those that are watching. I hope that this whole message encourage some people to believe for more, trust more, to see that, Lord, you are the same yesterday, today, and forever. There is none like you. And that, Lord, you truly are the awesome one, the mighty one, the King of Kings. And I pray for encounters for each person that's watching this, that's watched this whole thing through, that they will, if they haven't seen healings, if they haven't seen the miraculous, if they haven't seen these gifts in action in their churches or in their everyday life, Lord, that they will have an encounter right after they see this. In Jesus' name, Lord, I just pray for encounters. I pray for more. I pray for, Lord, that you would dispatch every rank and class of angel for every person watching, that, Lord, the enemy will not steal this word, will not try to hide it away, will not suffocate it or restrict it, but that, Lord, it would pierce deeply, and that people that see it will be encouraged. And they will have experiences. They will go on exploits with you. And that, Lord, they will be effective even more in their own ministries for you. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. That's it for this Cryout episode. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Next episode, we'll see what the Lord gives me next time. All right. Have a good night or day. Johnny. Bye.